And that's why, like, I think St. Paul, he says in Corinthians that it's difficult to serve both God and be married because you have divided interests. And I mean, that's true. And I don't know what to think about that, because I do think that the rules were made up by guys that could live alone and pray and fast. And I mean,
Welcome back, everyone. Craig and Jonah here today. How are you doing, Jonah?
doing pretty good. Had an interesting couple of days.
Would you have answered that question any differently yesterday morning?
I would have been right in the middle of a fast, so I tried something different the other day. And so what happened was, we had been intimate, like, it's been a week ago. Yeah, a week ago. And it was incredible. And so it's great. You kind of look forward to it, though, every day after that. Like, you know, I just thought it was going to happen again. But the busyness of life. See, like, we're, you know, more spontaneous than you guys. So maybe, you know, if we had been on a schedule, I would have known what was going on. But anyways, the anticipation builds all day long. And then before you know it, somebody's have to sleep on the couch, you know. You know, while we're watching TV.
Wasn't you?
Well, I think there was actually one night where it was.
Okay.
So this happened day after day, and you know, it just reaches a certain point. And so we were laying in bed the night talking about it, and I could just tell, you know, it wasn't going to happen. And it's not that I was frustrated or whatever. I mean, you know, it kind of was, but I was just like, we were just talking out loud, and I felt like it was in a safe space. And I was like, you know, I just don't know how this is all supposed to work, you know. And she's like, well, what do you mean? And so I get into details. And so then
hold on. See, what I have learned is what you have to do is say, are you receiving information? And if she says yes, she has to agree that she will listen.
Okay.
And not give you any kind of negative feedback. If she can't agree to that, she says no.
Well, so, and it was fine. It wasn't that kind of situation. I didn't have to redact everything or anything like that. But I just brought up this story. I thought it was really funny. So my friend, his wife is near menopause, and she's losing a lot of desire. And you know, unfortunately for him, he's still a guy. And so it's not that it's been leading to conflict, but they've just been talking about it lately. And so his wife is like, you know, maybe we should get like a concubine, you know, and, you know, you can impregnate her, make it a young woman. You can impregnate her and she can help out around the house. And so I thought I'd share the story. And this guy's wife, though, had one requirement. She could be under 200 pounds, but not by much.
Oh.
You know, so she wanted, you know, still.
Okay.
No, larger ladies, but, you know.
Okay.
She herself is not anywhere near a large lady. So
okay.
I think that was her requirement. And, you know, my friend was like, you know, could work with that probably. And they were just kind of joking about it. And so I started talking about polygamy a little bit. And, you know, it's something that Dolores and I had talked about as well in a joking way, you know, as far as what that would be like. And however, on this night, she wasn't having it. And she goes, this is in the dark, mind you. She goes, so who else would you want to have sex with? Of course, there's only one correct answer there. And it's the truth. I mean, even when I have dreams about sex, it's only with my wife for whatever reason. Like, I can't control that. Even if for, you know, some reason there is a different woman in my dream, I will always reject her and say I'm married. Like, it's insane that I have that level of commitment to my wife, but I do. But none of that was helping in that moment. And we went to the airing of grievances, and at that point I knew there was no turning back. And, like, you know, I was in serious trouble here, you know, because it had been days of this anticipation and buildup.
Yeah.
With nothing going on. So that's a painful place.
Yeah.
So a comment from our previous episode from a listener where they talked about, it was that trad woman where she talked about how abstinence should be approached with prayer and fasting. That hit me, and I thought, well, I'll try it. I didn't think of it immediately though. Like I made it through the night, I fell asleep, and then the next morning I went deer hunting, and I was sitting in the tree stand, and I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. So I thought I'll just see how long I can go with only coffee. And I went for 48 hours. And it was interesting because, the principles behind fasting are reasonable. You have the spiritual component, in our Catholic faith, but then also you have the physiological component where you're just depriving your body of nutrients. And there's, at some point, it's going to put whatever resources it has towards just like basic function, and reproduction is kind of like in last place. Like just like women, when they deprive themselves of food, like if they work out too much, they can skip periods and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that I would say it actually worked. Like there was a lot of freedom in that. Like it was the least I desired my wife. After about 18 hours, it was the least I desired my wife ever. Like there was a lot of freedom there. And at certain points, I did feel invincible. Like you read about these, it's kind of like the no-fap crowd where they, there's all these amazing benefits to fasting or whatever. I would say, and this is just a fair account of it, I would say that it's kind of a mixed bag. Like the freedom there was nice as far as like, I didn't even think about it. And I just focused on other things, and that was fine. There was mental clarity to some regard, but I feel a lot better when I eat. I don't know. It was fine overall as far as controlling, like getting everything under control. But then also there's a certain level of detachment that you can't have in marriage. Like I can see how for guys like Augustine or Aquinas, they just prayed and fasted. You can become detached from the world, but you can't become detached from your wife and kids. It's going to lead to conflict. And there's an overall drop in drive for basically everything. And then I had to look it up because it was interesting. Like creativity and libido and just ambition are connected in some way that's not totally understood, but it's true. Like I didn't have drive or interest in being with my wife, but I also didn't have a lot of drive for anything. So I don't know. It was interesting, and then when I did eat, I felt like crap, and I still feel like crap. Like I think it really messed things up as far as like maybe hormonally. Like before all this, I was actually really in a place that I hadn't been in a long time, as far as I felt like I was like 18 again, like physically. And I had been, I do all these things to kind of raise testosterone. Like we kind of talked about that. And I think I was really in an amazing place where I felt just incredible. But then there's issues with that. Like, you don't want to have a much higher libido than your spouse. And so I don't know. I'm still recovering. Like this morning, I still feel like crap. Like I ate and.
Are you still fasting on the other stuff?
No. So we this is how the story ends. So she came, I had the Yankees game on, and she came and she sat down on the couch with me last night and kind of gave me the look. And so then all those feelings came back instantly.
Isn't that amazing?
Like, that's something that Aquinas and Augustine never had to deal with. Like where you got, you're really focused on this stuff, focused on basically shutting her out, as far as trying to keep those emotions under control. But then your wife in an instant can come over and just like, bring all that back again. And so we were talking about it. She was real curious about what was going on, because I think it's interesting because she views.
Did she know you weren't eating? Like,
well, yeah. So I had been I knew I could do the fasting thing because I was deer hunting and I wasn't there for like supper time, or I wasn't there for meals, but I was there for one meal. And I just told her, I said, I'm going to see if I can fast for, an extended period.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that she views me rejecting her cooking as like I'm rejecting her. Which is, I don't know that for sure, but I could tell, like, whenever I do skip meals, she doesn't like that, and I suspect it could be something like that, which is interesting given the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But so, and so then she got kind of annoyed with me when I told her this. I said, the pain from fasting for 48 hours is absolutely nothing compared to the pain of not being intimate for a week. Like, I mean, they're not even on the same scale. I think I could have gone, I don't know how long without eating to get to that level of discomfort that you get with a week of PMAS. Even a few days. Like, I mean, the hunger pangs go away after a while. Like, you can just ignore them and they go away. Whereas the other stuff just doesn't go away.
Right.
It's always in your mind, like always. Yeah. Whereas I can just avoid food. Like, there was a time yesterday where an ad came up for a cheeseburger, and so I had been fasting for, like 40 some hours at that point, and it looked really good. Mm-hmm. Like, but I just moved away from it, like the ad, and I felt better. Like, I mean, it's so much easier to manage that it's not even in the same stratosphere. Mm-hmm. And I mean that. Like, and I mean, I feel like you and I are high achievers, and we are capable of doing a lot of things, but this is just like, there's some, like, I mean, I gave up eating for 2 days, which I don't know how many people do that regularly. I mean, there's some people, but it was difficult, but not as difficult as going a week without desiring my wife. I think if we didn't live together, I could do it, because you can just ignore it, like, as far as she is there, and there's just these natural inclinations that you can't control. But the pain of fasting is nowhere near that of abstinence, even for a week. Like, and I mean, I think that I'd almost starve to death if I would put the two in comparison with the pain level. Like, because you could just keep ignoring the food thing, especially, and I could see how, when you look at, if you're like, the rules, I think, were clearly made by a guy who could fast and didn't have to even think about his wife, because you can get away from it. I think that the fasting was a success, as far as you can totally shut that down and you can be in complete control. But you also couldn't really have a family and live like that, I don't think. I mean, I'm sure there's some guys that do it, and maybe, through practice, you could really slow down, your body's functions, and just, like, living on, a lower calorie diet, and that might be healthy too. I mean, I don't know. So I don't know, but that was the surprising part. It's just that the pain from not eating even for 2 days was nothing, absolutely nothing. It's not even a drop of water in the bucket compared to what 1 week of abstinence is like. And so that was something that really annoyed my wife. Like, she just didn't believe me. She's like, "Oh, you're being dramatic."
Yeah.
Like, I'm just being honest. And we did kind of recover after that, but she said she was annoyed with me. So I don't know.
It's amazing. The disparity between men and women, for the most part of these, is just never ceases to amaze me.
And that's what I said to her. I said, it's interesting. Like, it was a really interesting experiment to see if I could get rid of those feelings through fasting. And it did work. But, just that the pain was nowhere near that of abstinence. She's like, "How do you know how women feel?" It's like, well, I don't. But I just think it's clear that there's some disparity.
Does she not think there's a disparity between men and women?
No, she just said that her taking care of 4 kids, lowers her energy levels at the end of the day. And that's fine. And I totally agree. And am very supportive of all that women go through to raise their children. I mean, without a doubt, they are true heroes, and we just aren't capable of that level of attention to detail to everything, you know, the way that they are as far as raising the kids go. And that's just, I think, a natural thing that.
Yeah, that's where I just think, I don't know. The rules that we have just don't seem to correlate to reality at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just doesn't seem, unless we're designed to be kind of semi-miserable all the time with brief moments here and there when that kind of goes away and then it all returns. I mean, I don't think it's being dramatic. Like, nothing is is sort of such a constant background noise of frustration as this.
It's always dynamic.
Yeah.
Always. And it's only neutral is fine. Neutral is fine. It's the pain.
Right.
And I don't know what to do about
kind
that.
Of always there. It's always there until you're intimate, and then it kind of goes away for a day, and then it creeps back, and then it's always there.
And that's why, like, I think St. Paul, he says in Corinthians that it's difficult to serve both God and be married because you have divided interests. And I mean, that's true. And I don't know what to think about that, because I do think that the rules were made up by guys that could live alone and pray and fast. And I mean, there was a great deal of detachment that occurred, as far as, like, I can just see how you could just sit there in that state where it's not that you don't necessarily have energy, but just the drive is gone. But you feel like you can pray and you're detached totally from the world. Like, and you can just pray and connect with God. And there's something good in that. But you just can't live like that as a married man.
I have become kind of convinced that you can be fairly happy and high achieving if you're on one extreme or the other. Either you have a very, very active, intimate life, or you're just completely absent of any of it.
Mm-hmm. You have to shut it out.
Yeah, this kind of like on and off again stuff, I don't know, I find just incredibly frustrating and difficult, and you can't just flip that switch on and off all the time, which is what we do. And I would say it's fasting with moments of eating in between, not the other way around. Mm-hmm. It's not intermittent fasting, it's intermittent eating.
Yeah,
I think
true.
And that's when things are that's the case when things are going well. Like, mm-hmm. Things, like, for us, things are going as good as they've ever been. But I never get to the point where it's anything but a manageable problem.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a manageable problem at best.
Mm-hmm.
And
it affects.
And it does.
Different aspects of your life. Yeah. I don't know. And it's something, I know it's the discomfort and, like, just the constant nagging of the PMAS is something that my wife just, she can't understand. There's no way she can understand that.
Right. And this is not a Catholic phenomenon by any means. So your buddy with the concubine,
yeah,
is he Catholic?
No.
Okay.
No, he is just a secular guy. So, he's not religious in any way.
So just so we're clear here, we're not saying this is a uniquely Catholic problem. This is every couple's problem.
Yeah, because the guy, nobody enjoys solo activity.
No.
So he obviously has a desire to be intimate, and she's just not always into it. And she said, he said she's a good sport about it, but I think I
would say my wife's a good sport about it. But even at the highest good sport level, it is still, we are miles apart in terms of what our experience is.
Yeah.
She does. So, like, last night, for example. So we're a week into this latest desert period.
Okay.
With no end in sight. The Marquette is still registering low. So it was a kind of a rare night where the youngest went to sleep kind of early. And my wife's like, wow, I'm going to go upstairs and I'm going to lay in bed and read. And which is, I mean, nothing,
Yeah.
it wasn't like anything could happen anyway, but there wasn't even like, man, I really wish we could go upstairs. Like it never even, it's never even on our radar. Like maybe around ovulation. But even then, I don't even think she would like it. It just doesn't crack the list. Her idea of a good time on an evening when the kids go to sleep is to go up and read her book, which great, like fine.
And for a guy, you could poll 1,000 married men, and then I'm sure there's one guy, but there's 999 that they have one thing in their mind.
Yeah, there's
only one proper way to end the night.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or at least have a shared frustration that we can't do something. Yeah.
Totally fine. Just,
and
does she read romance novels?
No. She's reading some weird, I don't know if that's what she was reading last night, some weird ancient poem out of stubbornness. It's in a woman's group. And she stopped reading it. And I says, well, you should read it. And so now she's reading. Now she kind of hates me because I told her to keep reading it. But
she listened to you there.
Yeah. she can blame me every moment that she hates reading it that way. But I mean, there is just, I don't know. I mean, I was commenting with someone over on the Onan channel. I said, we are in a constant state of tension between men and women, even in really good marriages over this stuff, like a constant state where one spouse,
unless possibly they're infertile, but still extremely interested.
I don't think that, I mean, I don't know that really exists. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's a rare circumstance, but
even then, I can't imagine that the drive is the same for her as it is for him.
It's true, unless she has a beard, maybe. Just kidding.
We know one couple that keeps popping them out, and I think she's maybe she's the highest desire woman around, but I have reason to believe she could be quite a crank.
Yeah.
On a regular basis too. So
yeah, there's no perfect situation. Everybody's dealt a similar hand in that situation, ironically. Men
and women like right? I mean, and I like you, it's not even that I'm like, I fully understand why, with the burdens of motherhood and everything that goes into that, why this is not high on my wife's list of priorities. I wish it
bring another one of those things into the world that keep her busy.
Right.
I'm just kidding.
I totally get it. Like, and I just wish it didn't always have to be such a damn priority for me. Like, I wish you could just turn a switch and it would go off. Like you said, I would be fine with a neutral attitude, but it's never like that.
It's difficult. So the fasting is the closest thing that I've come to that feeling where it's just not there and it's not even on your radar. And that was nice, honestly. But how long can you go?
You can't do that. Yeah, that's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable, no. But then too, when my wife said, and I had eaten by that point, but when she said I'm moving the couch, it just all came back, and it's like,
Yeah, it reminds me of, I haven't tried this in a while, but in the past when we've been arguing, I'm like, fine, I'm not gonna. Even if you wanted to, I would say no.
Oh,
that never, like, move.
Don't try that at home.
I've never been able to dig my heels in and say no. Well, I don't know if she's ever really requested, but I've never had an opportunity to say no when she wanted to. It's always the other way
She'd call
around.
your bluff.
Yeah, I would fold.
I'm sure it felt good in the moment though to say that, but
yeah, I think it's mind games you play with yourself. It's just like, But I'm starting to think that you either need to be very active or just completely abstinent.
Hmm.
I don't know. This messing around with intermittent stuff,
So you're gonna pick abstinence then?
no, because I'm a weak man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the problem is that it brings a connection that you just don't get
Yeah.
other ways.
The
And I
high,
don't understand that.
you can't replace that high anywhere else. You can't
No,
replicate that in any other way. So the high is just and like the wonderfulness that it brings to your marriage is irreplaceable.
definitely, without a doubt,
Yeah.
there's nothing else you can do to get that high.
But the pain that it
Hmm.
also brings to you is just not like anything else. Like there's just something about it. So it's such a strange phenomenon because the highs are the high and the lows are the lowest, and you either get them both or none.
Hmm. And I don't know what would happen under the concubine scenario. Like, would you feel that bliss, but then, like, how would that work in the family dynamic? If you had, like, just like Solomon, he's got 300 concubines, 700
Seems to
wives.
me that apparently there's never enough.
Yeah, Solomon is the poster child for that.
I think we can safely assume that one concubine doesn't solve those problems.
Yeah,
Probably just
I would think
multiplies them.
1,000 women in your life would do that, as Solomon had.
Truth, I don't know.
And it's interesting because then you read these arguments online about polygamy and how it's not explicitly outlawed in the Bible. And, St. Paul just says that bishops and deacons shouldn't have more than one wife. And they talk about why women were kind of like a status symbol as far as like a sign of being extremely wealthy. If you could have like 20 wives, you were high in status. And so that's kind of why they think why Paul said that was because they wanted people to live humbly and just have one wife.
Not that there was a problem with having multiple wives,
Yep,
but the humility thing.
yeah. And that the push towards just having one wife came out of like the Roman or Greek, tradition. So I don't know what to think about that. Because polygamy, there's a certain reason why I'm sure that those guys had, like 10 wives or more.
On face value, it seems to have some seems to have a practical be a practical solution to some of these problems.
Mm-hmm. But it also seems like a guy in desperation maybe chose that situation.
I mean, I don't know. Seems to me you might just be multiplying your problems too. But
I think so. I mean, there is some beauty in a family as far as like, one man and one woman having kids. And I mean, it's just, I don't know. It seems natural as far as like the natural law sort of thing, although in nature that isn't the case for pretty much every animal.
mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, monogamy in the Catholic sense does seem fairly unnatural, actually. To the extent that it seems to run contrary to how most.
Well, especially when you include the strictness of the rules.
Yeah. I mean, again, just judging from the content out there, this is not a Catholic problem.
Yeah, like I said, my friend who has no religious affiliation whatsoever has no interest in religion.
Yeah, it's not like the couples that just have kind of license to do what they want and can have contraception and all that. They all have basically the same problems. The dynamics, by and large, are the same. I think probably more of those relationships just fail when things get difficult. More of those relationships fail than Catholics, where we're kind of stuck with each other.
Mm-hmm. For better or for worse.
For better or for worse. And but so even in a hypothetical situation, if the church were to like go lenient on some of these rules, whether it's on birth control or whatever, it's still going to be a very difficult situation the couple constantly has to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and communicate.
Like that, I get the impression that they just seem, those who are not married have this perspective that if we allow, let's say, contraception, for example, whatever, that couple, people are going to just turn into these hedonistic, selfish, whatever, or that it's going to make marriage easy somehow.
No,
and it's not.
And my wife is, or not my wife. My friend's wife is on a form of birth control that prevents her from ovulating or something. He said it's like a long-term sort of, but he didn't say what kind it was. But
how old a guy is he?
He is in his upper 40s, 47, I believe.
They have kids then?
Yeah, they have 2 kids.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't just become easier, or like it's not it doesn't make sex and marriage like easy for anybody.
No. Yeah, and I've said this, and I'll continue to say this. There, with all the moaning and complaining, personally, I think there is absolutely some value in natural family planning and being unable to engage in the conjugal act whenever you want.
It builds desire.
Yeah, I mean,
and communication. So like when I was talking, we were talking, my friend and I were talking about that, and like when I would talk about just ovulation or like outside of those periods, like he had no idea.
Oh,
so I mean,
she doesn't experience
that, but also I think it just wasn't something that was part of their marriage.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because for me, ovulation and period time are extremely important to me, and so I'm very aware of when that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as Catholics, as NFP type Catholics, I think it's easy to forget that most people are unaware of how any of that works. But for us, we're very much aware of what's going on with our wives. But so setting aside the Catholic moral rules when it comes to birth control and solo and all that kind of stuff, you're going to have a difficult situation regardless, and then you just add on, because I'm guessing your friend doesn't have any moral qualms about going solo.
Oh no,
right?
No, of course not.
So, but it doesn't take it doesn't take away the problems, right? Like
so there's still that desire to be with your wife, like
right.
That's a natural thing.
Yeah. So, but for Catholics, especially for Catholic guys, it just I just think it adds such an added layer of difficulty and strain on the marriage that, yes, I know there's supposed to be suffering in life, but there's suffering is going to be there with or without those rules.
Yeah.
It's just, you're just adding additional layers of suffering
to compound other suffering.
And this suffering isn't just in the moment. It isn't just the emotional dynamics. This is, oh my gosh, am I going to spend eternity in hell sort of stuff. Right?
That's true.
That can really mess with you because you're like, frequent intimacy eliminates most of those problems.
Absolutely.
Right?
It all goes away.
Right.
Apparently it's frequent intimacy or fasting.
Yeah.
Are your options.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there was a period in our marriage where we were extendedly infertile, and we made a commitment to basically every 4 days, which is like, I could do more often than that, but it made all the other stuff an entirely manageable problem. Like it was such a period of thriving, for both of us. But for me, it meant I didn't have to worry about this part of my life because I knew it was managed, and I literally felt like I was thriving under this. But that's not possible with NFP. Like, it's not possible when you.
Well, that's why the John Farrells of the world and like the trad women say no NFP.
Yeah.
Simple.
Well, okay, but most of this difficulties in our life is because we have all these kids. Adding more kids is not helping that.
Yeah, and I don't know what to say about that.
Well, especially if you're the John Farrell type that says once you're pregnant you stop. I mean, how
does that help?
I just that just doesn't seem like a realistic solution. I think for most of us, I think it's just. I guess it deals with some, I guess you're not dealing with the NFP abstinence related stuff, but you're just kicking the can down the road, really, and it's just compounds.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just it is this stuff really messes with my ability to see Catholic marriage as anything but a bit of a cross.
And maybe that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. But I think we should advertise it as such. It is, I would also say, barring some change, I just don't see married priests being a solution. I can't imagine trying to be a priest under these circumstances. Like I could go to my secular job and deal with that stuff, but I can't imagine like being available and ministering to people in their vulnerable states, men and women.
And somebody calls and says there's been a car accident, we need you right here. Your wife isn't going to be thrilled about that. Like if it happens repeatedly.
And understandably so. Like I just Marquette Madness. Right?
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking about this while I was fasting, just St. Paul said that most people should live singly. That depends on the interpretation, how you interpret that. Some people think that means just priests or whatever, people devoted to God, but I don't know how many people are really capable of getting married and living a difficult life like that. I mean, the stats show, even when you include the secular part of society, like 50% of marriages fail, and there's a reason for that. And then how many of those are truly thriving and happy? I mean, that's an extremely low number. It's difficult.
Yeah.
But I could see if you were a single person fasting and praying, maybe that is the life. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Marriage is something that befuddles me as far as how it's all supposed to work. Like I don't know. Like to thrive.
Yeah.
And because you have those moments, and there are time periods where things, like you said, are really thriving and they're going amazing, but stuff can go off the rails at any moment. Any moment.
Yeah. I don't feel like our marriage really thrives during NFP. Like I truly feel like it's a survival operation
where you're constantly redlining, the engine. It's true.
I mean, I just think the negatives, the difficulties that come to the marriage tend to, on balance, outweigh the benefits, which I just got done saying are true. There's benefit to abstaining. There is absolute benefit to that. I still think when you put two piles up there, the negatives outweigh the benefits.
Because it's really difficult.
It is. It diminishes my ability to. I mean, it certainly, I think, interferes with my ability to be the best dad I can be. It certainly interferes with your what kind of a husband you can be, because no matter how, I mean, in my mind, I know it's not my wife's fault, whatever.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right. But you also know that for the reasons we just got done talking about, more intimacy all but eliminates these problems. So then you realize that your ticket out of this is laying right next to you, rejecting you implicitly, or right, like,
yeah. And really, to be intimate twice a week requires exceptional level of circumstances that can only last for so long in some ways. I mean,
if you're reasonably fertile or whatever, I mean, you You can't do that indefinitely, I don't think.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I mean, it's a weird, I guess it's a weird bleakness about it that I don't know. I'm, I don't know, trying to reframe my expectations about what marriage is and isn't about.
Mm-hmm.
For so long, I fought it. Like I just fought it. I was so angry
Mm-hmm.
that this is not at all what I thought it would be. This is
Mm-hmm.
this is not this is not thriving mixed in with moments of difficulty and
Yep.
abstinence, right? It feels like it's the complete opposite.
Mm-hmm.
You have near constant difficulty with some moments of
Bliss.
mixed in.
Yeah.
I don't know how else I don't know how else to describe it, and I don't know how else.
I just wish that there were couples that you knew were thriving and you could point to them and say, this is how it's supposed to be done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And I mean, maybe they don't advertise it, but
Yeah, I mean, I saw something the other day. You're not really a social media guy.
no, I'm not.
There was a study done that statistically people that post regularly on social media about their spouse and how, like just kind of like how great things are, tend to be less happy than those who don't post about their spouse, which is a good thing for me. I'll get a Facebook happy birthday maybe or anniversary out of my wife. But
so you're in great shape then.
I must be in really good shape.
That's funny.
But I don't know. I think we're all being honest, and maybe the women's perspective is different from this. Maybe, do you think?
I don't know what women think. I mean, I've been with my wife for like 18 years now, and it's a mystery.
I mean,
we talked about that last night too.
Yeah. But I have to think that this part of life doesn't cause women as much frustration as men.
No, I think that, and I mean, I suspect, from Dolores, it's more about just the daily chores that kind of wear her out.
Yeah.
The grind. But I think that this is a non-issue.
Yeah, my wife doesn't.
Although maybe during ovulation,
I'm skeptical. I mean, I think if you asked my wife,
be careful asking questions you don't want answers to.
Yeah, well, she'll never listen to this podcast, so I think I'm okay. But if you ask her what the frustrations have been about, let's say, the Catholic life of NFP and all that, I'm sure it would be that she's had to do it more than she would want.
Which makes you feel great.
Right. And we have children that are there.
That are her responsibility.
Because she gave in, if you will, right? I guarantee you, if you put her on a spot and she answers honestly, that's going to be the first thing that comes to mind. It's not going to be like, oh, it's been so hard. I've had, had my desires. I've had to deny my desires and stuff like that, or at least desire for this stuff. I mean, she's had to give up her desire for reading and fun and all that stuff. But my wife would not say that Catholic marriage has been difficult because she's had to abstain. I guarantee you.
It is funny. I don't know.
And I'm sure if she was pressed, she would say, it's been hard because I feel like I've had to, I've felt the desire to do it more often than I would want because I want to please my husband. Or I know it's important to my husband. It's,
See, now that would be satisfying, right? Like that would make you happy if she would say something like that.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I just think it's just never been something that's super important to her. I mean, I think doing good things for me is important to her. Whatever she gets out of it is not that important to her, I think.
Yeah.
And the problem with that, I think, is, and I think this is probably what happens for a lot of couples, is you go through ups and downs. And there are times when, let's say, she's reminded, oh, that's right, this is important to my husband. I'm going to make more of an effort. But you slide back to what your normal inclinations are. And it wears off, and then you have to be reminded every so often. For us, it's the other way around, right? So, yeah, I just, as a whole, I find the whole system, with or without the Catholic rules, to be very perplexing and confusing, and I don't understand how or why we are so different.
I agree.
I don't think it's just concupiscence. I think we're just biologically different in so many fundamental ways.
And I do wonder what God was thinking, when he set that up. Like, I mean, I just mean that in fairness. I'm not, like, would he want to give us this type of struggle?
Are we meant to just, to have our natures just constantly at war with us?
Or was he fine with just this evolutionary sort of occurrence where women, want to limit how many children they have, and they limit that by being less interested?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I there's nothing that makes, like, and I have a very strong faith, but there is nothing that makes me question the existence of God, like marriage and how sex works.
Right. Yeah. Given how much our faith puts these things in our face from a moral perspective.
Yep.
Like, if the church, because I think the attitude of a lot of, let's say, non-Catholic churches is kind of like, with a few exceptions, husband and wife, you discern and do what prudentially decide what's appropriate for you in the bedroom.
Yep. I think that's the stance.
I think that is kind of I think that's
Christian
the position.
Churches.
Right. And if the church took that approach, those dynamics are still going to be there. The difficulties are going to still be there, but at least those difficulties aren't playing out on a constant basis where it implicates my moral salvation. I think is where
it's true.
I could do without all that. I would much rather navigate the difficulties and differences between me and my spouse on a more of a practical, real level, as opposed to this is illicit, that's illicit, whatever.
But then too, it's also possible that if you did live like in the other type of Christian marriage, that you could settle into a rut where nobody has sex.
Yeah, I know.
You're just like, well, I'm not asking for it anymore.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, they'd have porn and they could be by themselves, and I think that they are typically against porn. But I mean, when you don't have mortal and venial sins, what?
I do. I am curious about what impact that has on. I mean, because saying something is wrong is one thing, but having to march down to the confessional and say it to the priest is another thing.
Yeah, it's true.
So I don't know. Yeah, maybe that situation, just like the polygamy situation, whatever, just has its own set of problems, new set of problems that we don't deal with, and maybe on balance, the Catholic way is the least bad way of approaching it. I don't know.
It is interesting when you think about how life was set up, that it doesn't matter who you are or how much status or money or whatever you have, you still have problems.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And marriage is no different, except for it's like a combination of problems because you have more than one person.
Right.
And
Right.
it's just fascinating that it's set up that way. Just more money, more problems, less money, more problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
More wives, more problems. Poor Solomon.
Yeah. That poor guy.
Yeah, I feel bad for him. That poor son of a gun.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. The older I get, the more I ponder these things. Although I would say the less, like I said, it used to cause me a lot of frustration. Now it's more like I just kind of like put my hands up and like I don't get it. I just
Yep.
kind of resign myself to the fact that I'm not going to get it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any understanding it or the rules versus how it all works. I don't know.
And there was a long time where I thought I can change myself or I could change my wife. Like there's some fix to all this. I've now convinced myself there's no fix to any of this. It just is.
That is true, man. As far as like you think you can fix yourself, you think you can overcome it.
Yeah.
And I think you can as a single guy. Like I don't doubt that, honestly. But as a married guy, you're stuck.
I think it becomes just coming to grips with who you are and who your wife is and how these things work and just finding a way to kind of make peace with that to some extent is kind of where I've
because honestly the issue is that if you lose desire for your wife, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Like you lose the connection, and really there's a lot of stuff that guys do solely because of intimacy. Like they want to do things for their wife so it works out. And if you stop doing that, there'd be a world of trouble for whoever's marriage that is.
I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. When I do the dishes, my wife's like, "Well, I know why you're doing. I know why you're doing the dishes." And I'm like, "It's the middle. It's the middle of the NFP abstinence period. What the heck? Like, can't I just do nice things because I like to be helpful?"
That is interesting. That even during the abstinence,
she still thinks there's some ulterior motive there.
Well, maybe she thinks you're trying to build up like credit.
I don't know.
See, a simple thank you would be fine, right?
Seems like it. Seems like the natural response to that, but
it's always about sex, Craig.
I guess so. Maybe she's just severely repressed in her mind. This is her way.
Well, you could try unlocking that.
Yeah. I think I'll wait till menopause is over first.
Yeah, menopause. It looks like the great oasis.
Yeah.
You can't get pregnant, but then I'm sure there's challenges there.
Yeah. It's that great. It's that you just can never quite get there. You can never get to where things start to like actually work.
Yep.
Always just out of reach.
Because 50% of women stop having sex after the age of 50. It's a large percentage.
I don't know. I guess I'm going to be doing this podcast for a long time. Just from what I hear, it doesn't happen for us this way.
Yeah. I don't know. There's no easy way out. So.
Okay.
Well, it's my story. I'd say fasting works, but everything comes at a cost.
Yep, that's for sure.
I'd rather just be intimate more often.
Yeah. I would agree if she would agree. And the Marquette chart would agree, but it definitely doesn't agree.
Yeah.
So
that's where it is.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Well, that was kind of bleak.
I think you're just in the desert, which does impact the rest of your life. I mean, without a doubt. So.
It's not the same.
No, it's just it's just like the Wizard of Oz. The world is black and white during the desert period. And then once the bliss period comes, it's all in color.
And it just seems like I know we have at least a week, probably another 10 days.
Which is an eternity.
It just like, oh my gosh. The days go by so slow. And then when you're in the go period, it's just like, the calendar is flipping like crazy. I hate that. Just hate that.
Maybe you should try fasting and see if it does the same thing for you.
Not eating
That's what fasting is.
wouldn't hurt this body probably, but I did intermittent fasting for a while and I hated it. Where I
Like 16 and 8 sort of thing? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, tame your flesh. Try the fasting.
We'll see.
It honestly, and I don't know if I could do the fasting like where you only eat during a certain time period. It's easier just to get rid of it all.
Yeah.
It's just like we talked about.
Yeah, exactly.
Sex too.
That's right. I think.
But I'm scared to go that route with intimacy.
Yeah.
Just because it's not good for your marriage. I mean, there's no way it is.
And it is so good for your marriage when it happens.
It is.
No matter how infrequent it is. It is such a boost that you just can't. You can't just you can't walk away from it. I don't know. I don't think you should.
No.
So we're just be in this constant state of
frustration.
Yeah, frustration with some moments of relief in between.
That's why, really, if you're thinking about the priesthood or being a sister,
think about it a little longer.
I'd consider it. I mean, it's not easy. Like it is not. Marriage is nothing like the way that you think it will be.
I think
I don't care who you're married to either.
Yeah. I wonder, like, if someone asked me, like, I don't see how it's a good idea for Catholics to marry young.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I honestly think wait until you're in your 30s, get yourself established, get yourself financially stable, work on yourself, get married, and then just have all the babies you can have until things stop working.
And that's basically what we did for the most part. I mean, we got married at the age of 30 and we had 4 kids and some miscarriages, and that's just how it worked out.
Yeah. I don't know. I think to me, I think the main drawback to that, I used to think this was more of a problem than it is, because this is something I think my parents instilled in me, is like, well, the older you get, the more you get set in your ways and the less stable, once you've been a single independent person for long enough, it's harder. That's like true. To get married at 40, I think would be difficult for most people, because you've just, lived your life in a more or less a self-centered way.
And you probably already have your own home and have everything established. And I can see that being a real conflict.
Yeah. But I think if you knew this is what I want to do, and I think anyone can be trained and set the habits and be self-sacrificial to, when you get married, because I don't know, it's not like in my early 20s, I was this super unselfish person. So I tend to think that's a little bit exaggerated, but it's a problem that would have to be addressed, I think, proactively by the person. But if you could deal with that, to me, it just seems, get yourself financially secure, get yourself in a good place, and then get married with the understanding you're just going to have kids whenever kids come. One of you is probably going to stay at home. I mean, you're still going to have problems. This is going to, but I don't know.
I would say late 20s to 30 is probably the time to get married too. It makes sense.
I don't think getting married early when you're young and poor and all that, and it just, I don't know. I don't think it's wrong to go out and enjoy see the world a little bit, because you can't do that once you have kids.
It's true. That changes everything in a way that you can't imagine until you're there. The chances of you going on vacation when you have a child. I mean, some people do it.
Yeah. The difference is that for most of us Catholics that are using NFP, we're having babies into our 40s or up to 40, whereas most people, they have a couple kids in their early 30s, they're done. You get to your 40s and stuff, and your kids are starting to move out or whatever.
So that's an interesting point. So my friend also told me, the friend that is thinking about the concubine, he also told me that a few years ago, his wife, so they have 2 kids, and she was probably around the age of 40 or early 40s. She said, I'm thinking about opening up the baby maker for one more time.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? And he said, I'd need to think about it. And he came back a month later and said, all right, let's do this. I'm ready to do it. And she's like, nope, it's closed, to change my mind. So he really regrets that he had that one last chance. and he didn't do it.
Yeah.
Like you said, that's a huge regret for him.
Well, it's a total different. It comes up in a total different way, I think, than for most of us Catholics who, they, if they're using contraception, they you can decide when you want to have sex and not. Like, the decision to have a child isn't based on, man, I'd really like to do it now.
Yep.
And we're fertile,
Can you imagine? Like, that must be an interesting one where your wife's like, impregnate me now.
Yeah.
Like that's a very different sort of situation than just, the grind of daily life and, having sex at the end of a tired day out of just like pure
it is the one thing about sort of Catholic marriage that I disappointed in, is that the decision, at least for us, the decision to have kids has been not that
intentional.
Right. With a couple of them early on it was, but after that it was kind of like, it was kind of we're on the fence and then boom, we're pregnant kind of thing, right? Moment of weakness, boom, we're pregnant, right? Like, to have that, like, man, we really want to have a child, we're pulling the goalie, whatever. I'm jealous of couples that get to experience it that way, because for us it hasn't been that way.
It's just funny to think about. He's a very open and honest guy. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, keep me updated on the concubine situation.
I will if it works out. They actually had an interesting relationship as far as like they've dated since high school, so they've been together for a really long time. And so when we were in our 20s, they would actually go to the bar separately and like kind of flirt with other people and then get together at the end of the night. And it's just wild to think about. They had a wild relationship, but they stayed married.
They
never did anything with any of the other people. They just would flirt with them.
Do you think they have a good relationship?
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I know them pretty well.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So people live all sorts of different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I would still take the devil I know versus the one I don't.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy that he also encouraged me to buy sex toys, because he's like, when you come home at the end of the day and you hear the buzzing going on, you can just go in there and it's like, huh.
Yeah. As Catholics, I don't know what we don't. Most of us don't know what that's like.
Can she start foreplay on her own?
Yeah.
I think most guys would be fine with that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
All right. That was a long episode, but I think we covered a lot of really, really good stuff.
Yeah.
That 2 or 3 people on the planet will relate to. So.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well.
So consider frequent intimacy or prayer and fasting.
Yeah.
So, those are your options.
Those are your only options. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. That stuck to the end. Thank you, Jonah.
You bet.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good one.